we're back talking to Peter Levenda. And, boy, Peter, I got to tell you, when I was writing my book on alchemy, the number of synchronicities, it was almost ludicrous after a while. I felt like I was in a Salvador Dali painting, and everything had just turned into, rubber watches that were melting on cliffs, and quite unbelievable, actually. And really, to this day, don't know what to make of it at all, honestly.
Well, to me, it's always an indication that you're on the right track. I mean, when these coincidences start to pile up, you've obviously tapped into the mother lode of whatever it is you're working on. I mean, on some level, when the universe starts to organize itself around you that way, and to present you with the tools that you need, obviously, as I say, you're on the right track, whatever that track may happen to be. And you may not realize it for a while, but the coincidences, the synchronicities themselves, that's the evidence to me. That I view them as the evidence of darker, or not darker necessarily, but deeper forces that are at work, and they manifest as these synchronicities.
John Lash is a friend of mine. He wrote a book called Not in His Image, which is a very good book. And he talks about the gnostic beliefs of these creatures that they call the archons. Yep. And when I read his book, I was recalling your work and realizing that maybe that was the best succinct explanation for what you're finding. You know this concept of the archons and all that?
Certainly, of course, yes. I've been doing a lot of research in Gnosticism the last 5 or 6 years for other work that I've been involved with. Some of my other books hint at it a little bit. Stairway to Heaven, for instance.
Yeah, I saw that.
About it.
I want to get that book. Looks like a great book. I just saw it. I haven't read it yet.
It's not political. It veers right off the politics into the not necessarily the occult, but the esoteric anyway. So to me, all of this is all part of the same book. I mean, Unholy Alliance, Sinister Forces, Stairway to Heaven, all of it, they're all just chapters in one big book in a sense that's in my head that I'm trying to write. So I don't see any difference between the purely spiritual esoteric aspects and the grosser, mundane political things that I write about in Sinister Forces. What I tried to show was that there was a spiritual force at work, and the archons are a good way of describing what these spiritual forces might be.
So, what are these archons? What are they here for? Why are they screwing with us?
Well, you may recall that the original Gnostic idea of Genesis, if we're to believe the Gnostic version of it, is that the creator of the world was not God. The creator of the world was what they called the demiurge, the demiurgos, which was a creature of its own, like a kind of monstrous entity that created the world. To the Gnostics, God in the story of Genesis is represented by the serpent. They do a complete twist on this. To the Gnostics, the earth itself the materialism was evil, and only pure spirituality was good. So it's this kind of Manichaean idea of the forces of light versus darkness. So the archons might be maybe what Jesus said in the Gospels, referring to Satan as the king of this world. Maybe that's a Gnostic reference. Maybe the archons are the rulers of this world in a sense, and that's why we come across them as what I call sinister forces, because they can be manipulated. I believe that our own intelligence agencies, as an example, at one point in the 1950s, the 1960s, when they tried to experiment on the human mind, and they tried to use drugs, hypnosis, behavior modification, all of these various things, they were in our field. They were in our business, in a sense. They were in our house. What they were doing was committing a kind of spiritual initiation on innocent victims, people who had no idea what was going on, which meant that they had no spiritual training. They had no spiritual protection against what was taking place. If we do believe in initiation, then when we take our beliefs about initiation, how it works, the technology of it, and apply it towards what CIA was doing, for instance, with MKUltra, with Artichoke and Bluebird and all the other programs they were running, Operation Orphan and all the others, we can see that they had the necessary elements of spiritual initiation in place. they were using these things, but they were using them to weaponize them. And that's what, to me, caused all the problems. I think that right at the end of World War II, we had a chance to go in one direction or the other. And when we started importing the Nazi scientists and we started saying the ends justify the means, I think at that point we kind of lost our way, and we're still struggling to get back. We were abusing a spiritual process, in my point of view.
I completely agree. Is it possible that we, through those spiritual crimes, so to speak, is it possible they let something in accidentally?
Well, they did it on a localized level for sure. I mean, they did it on the level of the hundreds and thousands of people that they worked this quote unquote magic on.
That might be enough, actually.
Well, right. And who knows? I mean, we could look at an analog with the atomic explosion of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for instance, as being magical experiments, at least having a spiritual analog, and a cult analog, perhaps. I remember years ago, someone had shown me a copy of the Catholic Missal, Catholic prayer book that you use for the services during the week and on Sundays and stuff. And there was a diagram on one page that blew me away. This missal had been published in the 1950s, and there was a picture of a mushroom cloud. This is in a Catholic prayer book, and underneath it in Latin was Ecce qui tollit peccata mundi, which translated means, "Behold he who takes away the sins of the world."
Whoa. And
that juxtaposition of that mushroom cloud with that famous prayer that is said in Catholic churches daily was stunning. This idea that the atomic bomb was taking away the sins of the world. So there was a belief at some point among some people that this was not just a scientific thing, not just a military weapon that existed in its own world, but that there were ramifications. There were connections to spiritual processes that were involved. So it's possible that we did commit some sins. It's possible that we did let something in a sense, and that we have to deal with this now in a constructive way. I think the popularity of films that are coming out now, I know you do a lot of work on film, and I read your deconstruction of The Shining, and I thought it just blew me away. It was terrific.
Thank you.
There's a film coming out now, The Men Who Stare at Goats, based on a true story, based on the controlled remote viewing, that was taking place in the military. And they've made it it's become a comedy. They've turned it into what appears to be a comedy.
That's hilarious.
It's the only way to deal with it, I guess. So that's what we have to figure out. There has to be a more constructive way of dealing with it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that film, actually. I read the original thing it was based on. We're going to be right back. We're talking to Peter Levenda and Jay Weidner, and you're listening to the Smoke and Mirrors Radio Hour. And you can see my deconstruction of The Shining at jayweidner.com. And believe me, though, that thing is causing some controversy. Okay, we'll be right back.